about the Open Pandora, which is a pocket gaming computer that you can see here. All right, maybe it's the first time you see it. Some of you already have seen me with it, so it's not a surprise for you guys to see it again. But since I didn't make a formal presentation today, I'd like to go in more details to what you can do and get your question at the end to see if you have any interest in it. First, where this all starts. This is basically in the line of the open consoles movement that started about 10 years ago with the South Korean maker called Game Park that released a number of basically gaming consoles that were kind of unlocked. So you could run Ambrose or any programs you wanted on them. There was no restriction to what you could run on it, and they were usually based on a Unix system. And unfortunately, Game Park actually went bankrupt in 2007, and people who were following these consoles were very much, interested to continue their legacy and to further develop, that kind of system. So they got together and as a kind of community effort, and they developed, the Open Pandora. That came out first place in 2008. But this version that you see nowadays, it's the last year's version, 2012. And it's a 1 GHz version. That's the one I'm going to present today. So what is it about? First, it's a small device. You can see it's basically a handheld. It's easy to carry. It's about the same size as a Nintendo DS Lite, slightly thicker, but it's still very much portable. And you have a pressed touch screen there, so you can use a stylus, not your hand because it doesn't work. And you have, of course, digital pads as well as analog left and right pads, both of them here. They can use for gaming and also for kind of mouse control when you're inside the desktop itself. And as you can see, you have also action buttons as well as shoulder buttons in the back here. And you have obviously a full keyboard on this device that's used for many things, not only for emulation or gaming, also for serious stuff. And you have a removable battery at the back here that can be used for a very long time. Actually, you can get about more than 10 hours of active usage with this without any problem. Basically, I don't even charge it more than like once every 3 or 4 days. So even though I use it more than 2 or 3 hours every day. So it's very reliable as a battery, and you can really enjoy it for a long time before plugging it again in the wall. Next, you see that, they have also 2 SD card ports in the front there for storage, applications, and so on, and data. And since it's a regular SD card, you can actually put a huge amount of memory there for a relatively cheap price. And on an audio standpoint, you have stereo speakers, and you also have, of course, a headphones plug here, as well as a volume wheel, which is analog controlled. And in the back, you have a full USB 2 ports, which is a pretty nice feature if you want to connect a lot of USB stuff. But I won't go into that details today because it would take another presentation to say what you can do with the USB itself, because it just makes the possibilities much wider again. Inside this hardware, what you have is a Texas Instruments kind of IRM core that's running at 1 GHz and has 512 megabytes of memory and a PowerVR kind of GPU. But we don't have to worry about this kind of details, but it's fairly powerful for an handheld machine like that. Of course, if you compare with smartphones, you would think, my smartphone is better than that. Sure. But if you consider this as being kind of a console, it's actually kind of in the same level as a Vita or something like that. And it runs a Linux system basically called Angstrom, which is a Debian derivative. And that fits into a small amount of reflashable RAM called a NAND. That's why they choose basically this kind of distribution, because it fits into that kind of small space. Because if you use like Ubuntu or any kind of distribution, you would use like more than 1 gigabyte, so you wouldn't fit into that kind of space. And the boot sequence when you start it up looks like that. First, you have the bootloader that by default would choose to boot from the NAND by itself, and then you would end up through the desktop environment, which is based on XFC for Windows Manager. If you have SD card inside there, it would look for files called PND files, which are containing application. So a single file can contain an application on this system because the way they are packaged. So you put a single file into a certain folder, and during boot timing, they would recognize those files and load them as application, and they would appear after boot in your desktop menu, just like if they were there in the first place. So it's very seamless for the user and very beginner-friendly. And how do you get those PND files? Well, you can download them, of course, from repository from your PC itself, or you can also use this kind of PND manager application from the Pandora itself to download them online. And it's a one-click install. It's very easy to manage. You can also boot your own system. You're not restricted to using the default distribution. You can actually decide to the bootloader when you're starting up, I want to boot something else, and you can choose to boot something from your SD card instead. And that leads to booting to a totally different OS and bypassing completely the default distribution. So you can run, for example, Android, you can run Slackware. There's people working on also developing Ubuntu for this ARM version. And there's also recently somebody who released RISC-OS recompiled for ARM, which is based on the old computers from Acorn, if you're familiar with them. Of course, this was originally designed for gaming, so that's why you get this gaming control in the first place. And it was made to be a kind of emulator paradise, because the hardware is powerful enough to emulate a lot of the old, hardware consoles and computers. So actually, what you get is all this console here. You can emulate almost to the perfection. I would say almost, because Nintendo 64, unfortunately, the developer that was working on this one has kind of paused his developments and didn't finish completely his work. But for all the rest there, it's pretty much perfect emulation. I didn't put everything. There's much more that's emulated than this. Of course, like even older console like 8-bit Mattel and television and so on. Even like PC 98s from NEC and so on. Computer-wise, you can emulate all the 16-bit computer, the Amiga, the Atari ST, the MSX series from Japan. So you can run a huge amount of software with this, and you can, I think, understand the reason why there is a keyboard on this is because they wanted to emulate the computers as well, not just the consoles. So you can actually enjoy, the full computer version of these emulators without having to type on your screen or something. And you can run, of course, PC software from 90s era with DOSBox that you're familiar with, I think, if you enjoy emulation. Or QEMU, which enables you to do a virtual system to emulate completely the functioning of the PC itself, and you can run actually Windows 95 or 98 with this. You have SCUMVM, if you're familiar with the point-and-click games from LucasArts from the 90s. MAME for arcade emulation, because Final Burn Alpha 3 for arcade emulation as well, but using different code base from MAME. And recently there's been a new development for a Nintendo DS emulator called Drastic. That's still in very early phase development, but it's already achieving full speed in many games. Some of the 3D games you can still see it's slow, but it's still being in development, so we expect to see much more progress in the near future. But so far, that's an exclusive emulator for this device, and that's the fastest DS emulator available for all mobile devices so far. And it's more than just emulation. Of course, you can spend a lot of time, just playing with this. But as you start, doing other things, you realize it's actually good for a lot of things. That's, for example, like using ported software. That's, for example, Dune 2 engine was recreated in open source and reported to this console. And then you can actually, play this kind of game on this kind of screen, and it works very well, just like it did before. Yeah, also Warcraft that has been recreated through open source, porting Doom, of course, Duke Nukem. And in Duke Nukem you can use the two knobs here, one for movement and one to look around, so it's actually very pleasant to play with this. Homeworld, you can use the stylus to play with this, and it plays also very well, and it's just like, what you remember of it, excellent RTS game. And also you have native games, people actually making games for this software. This is an example of one of them called Paper Wars, which is going to be released probably in the next couple of months. And it's RTS, as you can see, is designed in 3D, and all the different elements are designed just like they were folded in paper, like origami. So it's very original, and we expect to see that coming out very soon. It will be released for free. It's kind of general part of the community. People do it for free and release it for free. They don't make money with it. is kind of the spirit behind that. And yeah, coming back to more than just fun, you can actually do serious stuff with this. There's a lot of Linux software available for this. Everything that's open source and can run on Linux really can be ported for this. So you have, of course, like development tools like Vim or Emacs. You have Arduino. With the USB port, you can connect to the Arduino boards and directly change the code of your Arduino board on the go. You don't have to bring a computer anymore. You have Firefox, but not the mobile version. It's actually longer. Not the mobile version, it's the desktop version. So you have the full extensions available. Office, you have LibreOffice to edit documents from Excel, Word, or whatever. You have excellent applications for audio playing playback that can play FLAC files and all these kind of formats you like. And there's a lot more. You have BitTorrent, of course, Bitcoin clients. You have Genie to write your own codes and code blocks that can help you to compile your code to make sure you can run this. That's the point of this. You can actually write your own code on this, compile it, and then distribute it in a single device. You don't have to buy a development kit or anything. You can do the whole thing on a single device. And you have also Java compatibility, so you can run a lot of Java applications on this. And currently there's 950 applications available, and as I mentioned here, most of them are free. So it's very easy to actually get into this and to make a use of them very easily. So what do I think about this? This device. Now, why did I get into this in the first place? First, I was into this for gaming because I'm a huge retro games fan. So I was interested to have kind of perfect Amiga emulation because that was the machine I used a lot when I was a teenager. But then, as I spent more and more time with it, I realized it's actually a real mini computer that's pretty powerful, and that can run a lot of demanding software, as much as you want. So now I start to use it, but like half-half for both, for serious use as well as gaming. And you can do a lot of things with this. And of course, you can do those things with a smartphone as well. So I see them as being very complementary, because for smartphone, it's for example very useful to browse things, to check things, to run some little apps. But when you have to start imputing text or like to write emails, kind of thing, personally I get crazy when I have to type on the touchscreen because I always make mistakes. It's always a hassle to get it right. So I tend, stop opening this and writing whatever I need to do with this, and then it's much faster, much more reliable. And on top of that, you get a huge battery life, so you don't need to worry about your smartphone dying on you during the day. This I can carry for several days, and it would still run fine without being plugged in the wall. And even when my smartphone is dying because the battery is out, I recharge it with the Pandora USB port. So it's actually emergency battery as well. But I think the whole purpose of this device is being part of the community. It's a small community. There's only about 5,000 devices like that out there. There's not going to be a huge following behind that. But when you go into the boards, when you go to the IC channel, you slowly get to see what kind of people are there, and they're all very helpful, very welcoming, very friendly, and they really want to teach what they know and share their experience with this device. And there's a lot of developers, active developers on this, who are actually very much teachers in the community. And past year, I wouldn't even know how to compile any application for this, and now I've been compiling already about 20 applications for this in the last couple of months. I learned a lot just because I've been in contact with this community. And now I would know how to do the same thing for Linux desktop and so that kind of thing as well. So it's a part of learning experience and sharing in general. So I think it's a very rewarding experience to be part of it. It's not just for gaming and anything else. It's just being part of this experience. It's small community driven. It's something that's created by users for users. And there's something beautiful into that makes me feel like I want to be a part of it. And if you want to get this one, there's distribution in Japan nowadays, and I have to tell you, however, it's very expensive, unfortunately, because the yen has been going down like that in the past 3 to 4 months. So unfortunately, the price is what it is. But if you're interested, if you think you have a use for that, I think you can probably find more information, and you can talk to me. I can tell you where you can get it.